Awesome. And that's the one I was looking for. Perfect. So yes, hi, and thank you for coming to my talk, the pros and cons of being a solo developer, by me, Mårten Jonsson, as she very accurately pointed out. So, let's begin. And I wanted to start with, the purpose of this talk. Why are you here, or what I hope you will gain from it. And the first thing is inspiration. I'm hoping you will feel a bit inspired. I don't know who is in the audience here. Maybe you are already established developers. Maybe you are thinking about getting into development. Maybe you have an idea and haven't quite figured out how to proceed with it. I'm hoping it will maybe find some inspiration here. And the second is motivation. Inspiration, motivation, they do tie hand in hand, but they're not the same thing. So I'm hoping we can provide some motivation as well. Again, maybe you have this game idea, you want to make something up, haven't quite figured out how to. Maybe it'll be some motivation. And finally, I'm hoping I can answer some questions. If there are someone here who has been thinking, okay, can I get a show of hands? Is someone here who isn't a solo developer but thinking about getting into it? Is there any such in the audience? Okay, so there are some people. That's nice. Okay. Kind of the point even, so that's awesome. It's for everyone. Everyone can learn something. It's never too late to learn things, but that's good to see. So that is the purpose. That is the purpose of this talk. And what you will take with you. I've mentioned them, but it's not exactly the same, but I'm hoping you will take with you some courage then. Again, it can be a big step to, sit down and decide, yeah, you know what, I am going to be a game developer. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it alone. It doesn't matter if you do it in a team. It doesn't matter how you do it, but, hopefully I will get you to take the step. I mentioned answer to questions, also then practical knowledge. Some of it, anyway. And finally, then some insights. Sounds like I'm repeating myself when I say practical knowledge and answers and insights. Not the same. I think you will see why towards the end, but this is what I'm hoping you will take with you. And I also do want to mention what this talk is not about. This is not a guide on how to make games. What kind of game developer you are, what kind of games you want to make, that is entirely up to you. This is not about I'm not talking about how to create games. All I'm saying is want to give you the best possible tools, the best possible circumstances for making your games. And if the circumstances are that you are a solo developer, then I'm hoping I can give you that. But I'm not talking about how to make a game or similar. Is that cool? All right. And obviously, I feel like I should mention, who am I? Why am I standing here talking about this? I've been working in the game industry since released my first game in 2011. I've been solo developing since. A bunch of different releases across desktop, PC, and mobile. I've also been teaching game and level design for many years. And I've been a freelance producer for the past years as well. So that is my background. And also, I'm going to be the first one to admit that what I did could not really be done today in the same way, because I released my first game in 2011, and that was back in the days where you could create a game, put it on your own website on fast Spring, and still sell 20 copies the first day with emailing one random site. That is not how the indie landscape works today, and that's unfortunate. But again, that wasn't really the point of this talk either. Again, I'm not telling you how to make or market a game, but just I will be the first to admit that my journey would not have worked in the same way today. And again, that doesn't really matter, because what's more important is who are you? What do you want to achieve? And that is questions anyone should answer themselves before they go into game development, of course. What is your purpose for going into game development? Why are you doing it? Is it, just to make money, just to get, creative ideas out there, etc. Way more important than who I am. Who are you? Why do you want to make games? Also, how you tackle development depends on what kind of game developer you are, and your motivations, of course. I hope that makes sense, at least. And hopefully you will have some further insights into that towards the end of this talk as well. Yes, like I mentioned, one ahead of myself here. What do you want? Do remember that while proceeding. I mean, everyone knows, you go into game development to make all the money. That's always been the point, right? Yeah. Not saying you can't do that, but if you're gonna go into game development with the sole purpose of making money, you're probably not gonna have a good time. So that's why we're gonna talk about creativity at first. Step one, creativity. Heart and soul of the industry, right? And the beauty of that, being a solo developer then is you have freedom. You have freedom to do whatever you want. And I am going to repeat that word a lot of times, freedom, because that is honestly like one of the core aspects of being a solo developer is that you do in fact have the freedom. Freedom to do whatever you want. Whatever vision you have in your head, whatever thing it is you want to put out there. See, you can do it. There's no one that's going to stand back and say, hold you back or have to compromise on ideas or vision or etc. It is, for better or worse, it's all you. Whatever you put out there, it's you. You are sharing yourself. You are sharing your vision. You're sharing your ideas, and that is, in a lot of ways, such a beautiful thing. So, I mean, what's the downside to being a solo developer when it comes to creativity? Yeah, it's all on you. That's kind of the downside. It is all on you. That can be tricky. No one else will finish your project. That is also there won't necessarily be someone else there to give you the extra push you need or to tell you how to fix things when you get stuck or whatever might be needed. That is the thing. It's all on you. And, say that you do actually finish a project, you put something out there. Anonymous people on the internet, they can be assholes, right? That's a thing we all know, right? Or does someone completely disagree with me here that anonymous people on the internet can be kind of jerks sometimes? I'm glad no one disagrees with that. I mean, that is something, honestly, even if you're a solo developer or not, being aware going into any creative industry that, whatever you put forth is going to be judged by people on the internet. And if you are a solo developer, it might, sting even more because, again, it is all on you. So that is just something I feel like you really should mentally prepare for. So, I mean, that was fun. Let's talk about some of the other fun things instead. Promise, it does get very positive towards the end. And again, pros and cons. So, motivation. That is definitely another thing. So motivation. How do you find the motivation? And, again, freedom. Still what it's all about. You have freedom. You have more freedom than anything else. Being creative and having freedom to pursue the creative things you want to do. Again, beautiful thing. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Whatever it is you have in your head, you can put it forward. Get it out there. Of course, there's no such thing as a bad idea. And one thing which is this is actually one of the more interesting things about specifically being a solo developer is that you can, in fact, switch it up a lot more. And this is individual, of course, depending on who you are. But you can very easily have one or two or even three projects going at the same time. That is not unusual, and that can even be good because you can reach points in development where you do get stuck or when the motivation gets lacking. You're running out of ideas. It can be a good idea to switch it up, and that's whether or not that's a good or bad thing, that is actually kind of your personal preference. I like having two projects going at the same time just because, when I do get bored of something, and it's very easy to just sit and do something else, when I can instead just switch projects. So that is definitely that I would say is one of the boons of solo developing. So, what are the downsides then? When it comes to motivation, it can be kind of hard to remember why sometimes. Again, personal preference in a lot of ways, but sometimes you have to remind yourself, why am I making games? When you're sitting, depending on how you work, if you're sitting home, work from home, for example, sitting alone a lot, it can be kind of hard to remember why sometimes. And again, we will be talking about mitigations of this a little bit later on, but that is a point worth to remember. And also, there's definitely such a thing as a bad idea. Oh my God, there are so many bad ideas. Of course there are. Whoever said there's no such thing as a bad idea, you know, that's a bad idea to say just in itself. Of course there's bad ideas. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I mean, that is also, no one can know really, that's the thing. I'm sure there have been many game pitches which have sounded terrible on paper and, you know, just worked out brilliantly. And vice versa for that matter. And, you know, if you're alone, maybe that part can come in a bit, that one can be rough. So yes, there's definitely such a thing as a bad idea. And this goes to like every indie developer out there, you know, solo developers, companies as well. You actually have to finish projects, you know. This is like the bane of indie developers. Everyone has a folder full of half-baked ideas or prototypes or whatever. Okay, how many here have a folder of like prototypes or game ideas that aren't finished? Yeah, me too. I mean, of course, everyone does. That's the thing. You have to actually finish projects, right? Finish a project. Important. Cool. And talk about creativity, about motivation. It's all good. Another very, very big aspect of being a solo developer is, of course, your time management. And essentially, when it comes to time management, there really is only like one thing that is like the main the main positive about solo developing. And again, yes, of course, that's freedom. You do have the freedom to plan your time. For me, that has been like one of the main aspects of why I like being a solo developer, is because I like to be in full control of my own time. Again, this is of course individual, based on how you are, why you are doing what you're doing, and as such. But for me, I would say it is the freedom. You have the time, you have the freedom to control your own time. Also ties in with other subjects. We'll go into that. But like, for example, part-time job while you're developing makes it a lot easier if you're solo developing, for example. And some of the negatives then, with the main thing being discipline. This is something, and this is like probably one of the most important things. And something you really have to kind of look into yourself if you are going to be a solo developer. It is to realize, do you actually have the discipline to be a solo developer? Kind of comes, remember what I said earlier, like you have to actually finish a game, right? Yeah, that's it. That's where the discipline aspect comes in. For me, I actually do have the discipline to finish projects, which, you know, I didn't know until I started, of course. But that is something you really should learn about yourself as quickly as possible. Because, you know, you need to have the discipline. Also, as far as time management goes, like when you get stuck, you can get kind of really stuck, actually. Again, this is, of course, individual. And as for, you know, every topic here is, of course, I can only base this on my experience, but also like what I've seen. But I feel like I've been around long enough to have seen these things I mentioned do tend to come up often. But you can get stuck, you can't really stuck. If you're working alone, it can be very easy to like, whether it's technical or creative-wise or such, it can be very easy to get stuck, and then it can be very easy to abandon the project. And with that freedom also comes that you actually should try to respect to keep a healthy work-life balance. You know, that is a solid advice. That's not just being a solo developer. I feel like that's just a solid life advice in general for any game developer. But if you don't have anything, if you have unlimited freedom, then yeah, making sure to keep a healthy work-life balance actually becomes even more important, I'd say. Health does lead to productivity and creativity. I hope people know that already. But, you know, find the thing that works for you. I'm not saying get up at 7:30 in the morning and work on games. No, absolutely not. Again, part of being a solo developer is the freedom you have. I don't like getting up in the morning. Yeah, well, I don't have to. I can start working at 11 in the morning because that works for me. If you don't like to start your day before 2 in the afternoon, fine. That doesn't matter. That's not the point. It's still about, you know, just keeping the balance of it healthy. And one of the, maybe not the most fun subject, but important one nonetheless. Money makes the world go round, and such and such. So, being a solo developer, and when it comes to finances, one of the things, the process, like you get what you put in. Yeah, I mean, whether that is just time, energy, if it is your own funding, whatever it may be, what you put into your game, that is what you put into your process, that is what you get back. And that is a very positive thing. Should hope so, at least. And another thing that often gets overlooked, actually, is that logistics when you're alone, in fact, is easier if you're solo developing. And what I mean with that is things like traveling, hotels, going to conferences, etc. actually does become a little bit easier when you're alone, just because, well, you're more flexible in a sense. Logistics, hotels can be easier because, you know, maybe you have a friend who lives in the city with a conference being held, and being able to host one person versus a dev team of 6, widely different. So that is actually just one little, like, small thing that people tend to not think about, but you are actually way more flexible when you are alone. Also, maybe you don't have to share a backpack room with your fellow other snoring devs, which is also nice. Finances, of course, not when it comes to being a solo developer, also just basically one major point here. Yeah, the risk is of course all on you. That's the thing. You get what you put in, for good and for bad. If you do, like, whatever you know, whatever it is you do put in, we can talk about time, for example. Like, time is like the main thing you put in, right? And whatever your time is worth, bit up to you. But like, yeah, whatever work you put in, that is what you get back. Same with, say that you do get an investment, or you know, you take out a loan to finance your development. The risk is on you. That's unfortunately how it's going to be. So investments, loans, etc. That's something to, I feel like you should really think twice or thrice about that if you are working alone. So you get what you put in, and you know whether you get that back or not, up to you. That makes sense, I hope. And a subject that doesn't sound as fun, but actually is in a lot of ways, I would say, comes to limitations when being a solo developer. And I'm going to do this one in reverse order. So we're actually going to start by talking about the cons of it. Because limitations, when being a solo developer, you know, beyond the obvious things like maybe, yeah, you have the time of one person, of course. But and again, this is not everyone, but this has been my observation. Usually people who work alone are good at a lot of the things, but they are master of none, basically. Or they are of one specific and lacking in some of the others. Basically, I'm not saying there aren't, but there are very few developers that are like really good at every discipline needed to create a game. I'm sure there are people like that out there. and all the more kudos to them. But you know, probably not going to be the expert at every discipline, and that's not a problem in itself. Just something to maybe be aware of. Tech and tools can be a limitation as well. Your knowledge is, of course, limited to who you are and you as a one person. And it's not a big thing, but it's still something you should kind of be aware of. It's not a truth per se, but I've seen that being observed many times. You get limited. And I mean, it's the similar, kind of goes in with resources. That is, you are limited in resource. Maybe you're limited in funding. You are definitely limited in time. That is one thing to remember as a solo developer. Time is your most precious commodity. That's the one thing you have. And that is the one you have to guard the most carefully. I hope that makes sense. Again, this isn't all. Sure, there are a bunch of other limitations where it's said if you want to see it. But like these are the things like to be aware of. But one of the good things about that is that actually limitations breed creativity. Limitations is a breeding. 1 minute, I thought it was 30 minutes total. Really? Then I have been grossly misinformed. And with that, you should lean into your strengths. That is like the one advice I would give to any developer. Lean into your strengths. I mean, these are some of the obvious examples. So, yeah, Thomas Was Alone. It's like the poster child for programmer art. If you only know Twine, you can still make games. If you only know how to, I can't see it behind my screen there, but yeah, if you can only do, only use Word for your, or Word, can only use like Microsoft for your art, Paint for your art, do that. That's fine. So yes, creativity breeds limitations breed creativity. And I want to talk about management, and by management I mean like both brand management, managing administration-wise, and things like that. And there are some of the things there which, again, you have freedom. You have freedom to work your personal brand any way you want, to work, setting up a company in the way you want, for example, presenting yourself and your games to the world in any way you want. There's no one else that's going to screw it up. You're not going to wake up to someone going on a drunken Twitter rant proclaiming all left-handed people to be the children of Lilith. That's just, yeah, it's not that it happens that often, but yeah, you're presenting yourself. No one else is going to be there to screw it up. You get to show yourself off, basically. With that said, managing, whether it's brand management, it's time management, it's all that administration that comes with creating games, takes time. Again, time, your most precious commodity. Sociability. If you are going to be managing social media and the likes, you do, in fact, need to be sociable, being able to handle it, or at least be aware of whether or not you can handle it. Not everyone can, nor should, nor want to. That's fine. Still saying it is something to think about. Costs. I mean, yeah, it ties very true into finances, which I mentioned. Things cost money. I mean, it's not just game development. If you do want to, long-term development, there are other things you need. You need to have, I don't know, maybe pro GitHub accounts, Dropbox, websites. There is a lot of ancillary costs to making games if you actually want to do it further than just on a hobby level. I hope that makes sense. So how many minutes do I have left? I'm good? Okay, cool. She was pointing at me saying I only had 1 minute left. I could have swore I had at least 5 left. So which is good, because that means I can talk about some of the mitigation as well. my mitigation, I mean, okay, like some of the things I mentioned, I have already talked about the solutions, but I want to give some, you know, more specific, a bit more like hands-on, hey, these are some things you can do. And one of those things are, you are in fact not alone. Even if you are a solo developer, you are not alone. Like the game industry is, like any industry, has its ups and downs, downsides and downsides. But I will say, like, it is full of amazing people. And that is something you really, really should just, you know, keep in mind. So many wonderful people in the game community, and they will help you out. Connect with your local game scene. Any city, most cities have some form of dev community. If there isn't one, create it. That's happened as well. I've done that many times when I travel, for example. I find the local, whatever city I'm in, I find the local game dev hub, usually indie game dev hub, and just connect, and I say, hey, I'm going to be visiting a city. I'm a game dev from Sweden. Anyone want to go out for a beer? And it's like, every time it works, and every time someone will happily do it. I've done a favor in return. Connect with the community. You are, in fact, not alone. If you're choosing to work alone, which is fine, you know, do connect with people. And this one is purely, this one is absolutely a personal preference, I will say. Something I find very useful is going to game jams, especially when working alone. You can work alone in game jams as well, but being in a creative environment really does help you sometimes. And again, this one, that's why of all the things I mentioned, this is probably the one that's like, I will say this is a personal preference of mine, but it's a recommendation you can do. If you feel you're getting stuck, if you don't feel like being creatively challenged, if you just feel like whatever might happen, the game developing isn't going as well as you wanted, game jams is actually a very easy fix for that. Finances. Interesting thing. You can hustle a little. And this isn't necessarily just being a solo developer thing, but if you're alone, you can make money last a lot longer when you're in fact being a solo developer. I'm not just talking about eating noodles, which isn't even that cheap anymore. So I don't know who sold that lie. Big Noodle, probably. For example, I can tell you one story that happened to me. It was a bunch of years ago when the Wii U was just out. Where I've been out for a while. The engine I was working with supported Wii U, like basically right out of the box. Like I wanted to develop for it, looked it up, and the dev kit was like 2,500, 3,000 euros something. I mean, that's a lot of money. Especially back in, and this was like 10 years ago when money was worth even more money than they are now. So I was like, okay, yeah, no, I mean, I wanted to release it on Wii U, but like I don't want to pay 3,000 euros for it. That's probably what I'm going to make in total. So mentioned my woes to one of the CEOs of one of the bigger companies in Gothenburg, and said like, okay, but you know what? We're actually going to have an office party here like next Friday. You should totally come, because you know there's going to be a guy from like a representative from Nintendo of Europe there. It's like, all right, cool, yeah, no, I'll be there. Went to the office party and like, yeah, no, there's a guy. Like, I introduced myself, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna wait a little. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna see that he gets a few more drinks in him. And then I'm going to talk to him. It's like smoothly, you know, mention the fact like, oh, hey, man, yeah, you're Nintendo, right? Yeah. I mean, I love the Wii U. I'd love to develop the Wii U. But, you know, I'm a solo dev, so the dev kit costs are just too much. And he's like, yeah, don't worry, man. Just email me tomorrow. I'll make sure you can lend one for free. Which I then follow up then, which, yeah, I actually did get it for free after that. That's kind of what I mean with hustle. I'm not saying tricking people. I'm just saying, you know, being a solo developer has its perks in a way that approach could actually work. Everyone's happy for it, by the way. I mean, release games on the console, so. Speaking of, this is just a tip in general. I mean, if you're planning to do anything more than just, I don't know, releasing game jam games on itch, and if that way you want to do, that's fine. But if you have any sort of further ambition, you really should set up a game company. It makes life easier. It makes the finances better. It makes a lot of sense. And if I recall the schedule correctly, there's a talk after this one about how to set up a company. So you should probably listen to that then. I don't know if that was just genius programming or if it was a fluke, but it worked either way. Also, I mean, very common thing in the industry, right? You work for profit shares. It's not a new one. Not strange things to do if you are, especially if you're in the beginning of your career. A lot of people do that. I will say a caveat to that, though. If you are working, people, it doesn't matter how good of your friends you are. Have contracts, signed contracts on everything you do. Doesn't matter how well you think you like or know each other. Always have written contracts. That is, I don't know, life advice, basically. And I think one of the last things I have here is, well, time management. And because see, the time is running away, actually, but should be almost done. Adjust your expectations. You are probably not going to make you're not going to make the next World of Warcraft alone. Of course not. Adjust your expectation, and again, remember what I said about leaning into your strengths and like what kind of games you should make. Adjust your expectations accordingly. I'm not saying like don't follow your dreams. I'm just saying like, make the dream somewhat realistic maybe. Same thing then learn to scope. Learn to scope your games. This is something people seemingly, not just solo developers, this is every developer. Whoever learns how to successfully scope a software project of any kind is going to be a multi-billionaire, the next day because it is virtually impossible. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try, though. And don't do everything at once. It's also a thing. Like I mentioned, management. You are creating a game. You are probably, or at least you should, do PR and manage social media and the likes at the same time. Just you don't necessarily have to do everything at once, though. That is like one of the things about being a solo developer itself. Again, I've mentioned freedom. You can actually split these things up a little bit. You are tired of developing, been crunching for a couple of weeks because you found it fun. Okay, you don't want to burn out, so maybe that's some time to work on some social media or build a website or look into pitches or look into finances, stuff like that. Just you don't have to do everything at once. And finally, the core question. Ask yourself, should you really be alone? Is that actually what you want? Maybe for some it's a choice, maybe for some it isn't. It's still, you really should ask yourself that. Before going into, so I'm going to be a solo developer. Okay, well, should you? The things I've said here, do you have the discipline for it? Do you have the drive for it? All of those things. Definitely something you should ask yourself. So, summary, and promise this is the last slide. If I'm trying to summarize the things I've mentioned here, it is in these things, with great freedom comes great responsibility, obviously. You have freedom. That is, again, I feel like the core point of being a solo developer. You do have the freedom. You are free to manage your time. You're free to manage your time. With that comes responsibility. You do need to have the discipline to do it. Join the game dev community. I don't have to tell people here, it's a bit hypocritical. You are at a conference, you're obviously already doing it, but keep doing it. And especially connect with your local community. Show off what you're doing, talk to people. Or don't, but join the community. You don't have to be alone. And this, I feel, isn't talked about as often, like, find your niche audience. This, I feel, is, this is indie development in general, but it becomes especially true if you're a solo developer. Don't make an open world Souls-like Metroidvania with multiplayer crafting elements. It's not going to work, bro. It's not. Like, same thing, just like I mentioned scope, for example. And I'm also, this isn't necessarily a rule, but this is an observation I have seen throughout the years, which just falls true. And I've seen a lot of other talented developers have talks about this, like why you should create games for a niche audience, or not niche, but target your audience a bit more. This isn't everything you can see on the subject, but I feel like, yeah, I'm actually pretty happy. Now even looking back on it, I'm looking at this, I feel like this is the main takeaway, actually. that is the pros and cons of being a solo developer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mårten.
Are we doing questions? Can I do questions?
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Mårten, for your speech. So, do you have any questions? I'm just gonna go. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Great talk. One question: how do you keep your sanity as a solo developer?
Who said I have my sanity?
Good
Well,
answer.
actually, no. That's where the engaging with the community comes from. And if you work alone from home, you know, have social activities outside of that. That would be the thing. Like I play Dungeons and Dragons regularly because that's, you know, I interact with people outside of my home. That would be the thing. Make sure you go out and are social in other settings.
Any more questions?
All right, cool. I'll get off the stage then.
All right. Thank you
If
so
anyone
much.
comes up with any questions they thought about later, feel free to add me on LinkedIn or push me down here. I'll happily discuss this further.